We are in week 21 of the Torah Portion 21, and this week is Ki Tisa. If I'm saying it right, probably not, but that's okay. And James, since you're new, I don't know if you know much about the Torah portion. So the name of it comes from the first verse or two of the portion. So this means when you take. And the very first opening, so we'll start. So we'll be going from Exodus chapter 30, verse 11 to 35, or is it 34 or 35? Hold on. 34, verse 35, which we're not going to read every line. You guys know I was doing that, but then we were here for 3 hours. And I can keep us here for 3 hours without reading every verse, so it's okay. All right? You know, I have a lot to say. Lord willing, the Lord has a lot to say through me. That's my prayer, right? It's not just me talking, but it's Him talking. So I'll read a couple of verses here, and then I kind of want to go back to where I opened up a little bit before we prayed. So verse 11, the Lord also spoke to Moses, saying, when you take a census of the sons of Israel to number them, then each one of them shall give a ransom for himself to the Lord. When you number them, so that there will be no plague among them when you number them. This is what everyone who is numbered shall give: half a shekel according to the shekel of the sanctuary. The shekel is 20 gerahs, half a shekel as a contribution to the Lord. So the Lord commanded Moses to count the people. But I love it because God doesn't want us to be a number, right? Think about, like the Holocaust, or when people get imprisoned, they're like humanity is stripped from them, and they're numbered, right? And the Holocaust, Hitler and the Nazis knew what they were doing when they tattooed a number on these people. They were making them a number and no longer a person. Think about when people go into prison, they now have a number attached to them, and they're not as much of a person as they were at once. And So God sets it up in a special way to where, Philip, you're not number one, David, you're not number two, Karen, you're not number three, but you bring a half a shekel and you put it in the contribution, the offering, and then that's the way the people are numbered. By their offering, not by their, and think about this. So the Hebrew name for Exodus, right? Exodus is the Latin name, and it speaks of the Exodus. It's focused on Israel being delivered or exiting Egypt. But I told you I love the Hebrew name of it because the Hebrew name is Shemot, and Shemot means names. So God is bringing this people who were 430 years sojourners and slaves in a land that wasn't their own, that now their identity has become slave and not Israelite, not chosen people of God. And he's bringing them out, and he begins to remind them of who they are. So instead of having them become a number now, they put in a shekel, and then the beauty of that half a shekel is that money then is used for the tabernacle. It's used for the worshiping of God. So it's like not only are you not a number, but even what you give has become the like a driving purpose of your existence. Our existence is to worship God and be in relationship with Him. So here we are. We're not being 1, 2, 3, 4. You're giving of yourself, a provision of yourself, and that very provision is going towards the perpetuation of God's tabernacle, of His, right? Because we just read about the tabernacle. We're reading about the furniture, the design and the build. And remember, Shemot 25, Exodus chapter 25, verse 8, God said, build it like this. Why? Anybody? No. Why did God say build it just like I'm showing you? What is his purpose? Because I want to dwell with you, right? And not even just with you, but remember we broke down the Hebrew and it doesn't even mean with them, like in there, it means in them. Not just in the sanctuary, not just in the tabernacle, but in the people. Again, plan A, James. That was his plan from the beginning. And it's still his plan. So here we go, the way that he's going to count his people is by having them, right? And we get this opportunity every week to sow into God's kingdom when we give our tithes and offerings. And people disconnect. I mean, honestly, I think if people understood the connection of, because especially in our modern life, and this was an agricultural society, so a lot of times these offerings were animals, were crops. What do those things represent? Provision, life, livelihood. So, we get this opportunity every week to sow into the Lord's purposes from what is our livelihood. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, what is our livelihood? What is our provision? Who is our provision? God is our provision. Everything that we have comes from him. Every good and perfect gift comes down from above from our Father of lights. Whether people acknowledge it, realize it or not, that's the truth. Right? I love Yeshua said, you cannot cause one hair on your head to turn gray. You can't cause yourself to grow an inch. We are completely dependent on God. He holds all things together. So I just love, this is God's way. And we see a similar incident later in the Bible. Does anybody know where else there was a census taken? Do you remember? David. And what happened when David took the census? You're right. There was disease. There was sickness that fell upon the people, right? So isn't that interesting that long before that happened, because Moses was listening and moved forwards in God's plan, God called that census. David did it on his own. And I love it, though, because David was a man after God's own heart. So we fall, we stumble, we take steps back sometimes, but we just keep going, right? And that's the mercies of God that we see. I love what David said. He said, far be it from me, Lord, to decide for you what should be the payment, what should be the punishment for the people, right? Because he was given a choice of what could happen. And God sent a plague on them. Isn't that interesting? So we see that shadow and that type. Like you're not supposed to be a number. You're a human. And how does this, it's just, again, so connected to God bringing them out of slavery, out of bondage, and how much are we that we've been delivered by the grace of God from being a slave of sin and death. But oftentimes we forget. We spent so much time being that slave of sin and death that we don't realize we're free men. So God continues to put us in these situations to develop and to pull out that identity that we have as sons and daughters. And this relates to the Shabbat. We get every week. We get the right. I shared last night in service. I spoke this, right? God says finally in Deuteronomy, the reason why I keep telling you to take Shabbat is because a slave doesn't get a rest. But you're not slaves. You're sons and daughters. Sons and daughters get a rest. Princes and princesses get rest. So we get a rest. And So yeah, I love it. So here it is again. He's continuing to build their identity that's been taken from them, and we have that opportunity too. It's so good. And here's the nature of God again, right? Like he's no respecter of persons. We are. Right? We measure by the outward appearance oftentimes. By God's grace, we're being formed more and more into His image, so we do that less and less. But God, He doesn't measure by that. So look at this in verse 15. The rich shall not pay more, and the poor shall not pay less than the half a shekel. When you give the contribution to the Lord to make atonement for yourselves, right? Equal ground, guys. It's equal. Your value, your God-given value is equal. Nobody's worth more. Nobody's worth less. Nobody can give more to have a better place. Nobody can, give less. I love Yeshua. I mean, he's on his way to die on the cross. He's on his way to be separated for the first time ever from the Father. Right? He's always in the bosom of the Father. Always has been. Always has been in perfect relationship with the Father. So, right, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Like that moment of looking away because he bore the sins of the world on himself. But he's getting ready to go to that place, and he stops with his disciples and says, look at this, check this out, guys. And we have the little widow that comes and puts her couple little pebbles in the offering box, right? And gives out of her lack all that she has. And Jesus is like, that one. That one right there. See that, guys? I mean, how important is that he pauses on his way to the cross to teach that moment? Think about that. It's an important moment. So nobody's worth, God just, he wants you to love him with all your heart and be faithful to him. That's all that he wants. He wants us to love him with all of our heart and to be faithful to him. And he calls you, and he knows that you can do it. He calls you and he knows that he can. He's not asking you to do anything that he doesn't think you can do. Now it's hard, but you were created for hard. I love this thought because you were created to do more than you realize you can do. You were created to exceed the boundaries of the utmost of what you can do. That's why people climb Mount Everest. That's why people do these great, amazing things. They push themselves to their limits. How many of us have thought, man, this task is too big for me? And then you accomplish it and you go, I can do it. And then set you up to accomplish the next bigger task and the next. So God has called you because he knows you can do it. Now you couldn't earn your righteousness, only Jesus could do that. But he knows that you can love him with all of your heart and that you can be faithful to him. Now, it may take a minute, and it may take a journey. Look at Peter. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, but Jesus knew. He knew who Peter was and who he was going to be. We're all created equal. So, I'm going to do a little fast forwarding. Again, I just want to pull out some kind of key foundations. So I'm not going to read every line because, again, we'd be here all day. So the next thing would be the anointing oil. Again, now remember where we're at. So we just spent all this time talking about the furniture, the building, the blueprint, what, in the previous portions, what was required to worship God in space. right? The tabernacle is literally a place, because we're human beings, and just the way we're wired, the way we're made, we need a place, right? We need a place to worship. If we don't have it, then we'll make it up. We're going to see, unfortunately, like we need something to follow. We need something tangible, because it's the way we've been created, right? It's like the resurrected body change, the new heaven, the new earth. Like, we need to understand that like plan A is still plan A. He's not, going to do away with it and make something completely different. That would mean that Satan won. If he burned all of this up, all of his creation up, and then recreated something new, that would mean that he made a mistake in the beginning. Huh? That would mean that Satan won, Satan was smarter, and got the best of God. No. Plan A from the beginning. Kira's still plan A. Right? No plan B, no plan C. Plan Almighty, and that's it. But so I want to go down here to it's in my Bible down here, and then it's on the next page. So it's down here and then up there. All right. So I want to go to verse 34. So he just spent some time talking about the anointing oil, which is beautiful. The anointing oil that had to be made in a certain way. All of these things have to be very specific and made in a certain way in order for... We can't just approach God any way that we want. That's why there's one way, guys. There's not multiple ways. There's not Buddha and Allah and Krishna. There's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. There's one way. I am the way. You know the way. How do we know the way, Lord? I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father but through me. So there's a way to come to God, but in His love and mercy and kindness and His desire to have a relationship with us, He's given us everything that we need pertaining to life and godliness. He's given it to us. He's given us these covenants, right? Covenant. What does covenant mean? What's the definition of covenant? Covenant, does anybody remember what I shared? Covenant is a word guide or path or road that leads into relationship. It's like the marriage covenant is the I do's and the I don'ts that set the parameters and the guidelines, the runway lights for the relationship. The marriage itself is the relationship. The covenant are the words that give us direction into that relationship. That's what this is. That's why Jesus said, in these, speaking to the religious leaders of the day, in these, the scriptures, you think you have life, but I've given these to you to lead you to me, that you may have relationship and find life. Now, these are the standard. These are God's words. These are they're inerrant. I believe that these are the words of God given through men, penned down on paper for a reason. And not just to have the book itself, but the book itself is to bring us into relationship with Him. That is the reason. That is the whole reason why God created the earth and put us on it. It's the whole purpose of your existence, is to be in relationship with God, right? He began, He spoke, and there's the earth and the universe, and it's formless and void. And then He begins to speak and put order to it. And then He brings life forth on it. And then He puts man on it and tells him to name the animals and to have dominion over it and rule it, work it even, right? Cultivate it. Be fruitful and multiply. Work we were created for work. It's the toil that came after the fall that was the problem. Work suddenly became toil and not joyful. So I asked a daughter of mine in the Lord not too long ago, we were talking, and I said, so are you working for God or are you working with God? That'll make quite a difference in your life. If you're working for him, then he'll be a taskmaster. If you're working with him, then he'll be a loving father who is helping you grow and learn and succeed. Perspective is perspective, right? Our human perspective, unfortunately, because of our fallen nature, oftentimes is the negative and not the positive. So we've got to fight to enter into the positive, right? How many of us, how easy is it to be a negative mindset, right? It comes and it's like a fire, bam, and you have to fight to come out of that. How easy is it to find a negative thing to say about somebody or a situation as opposed to say something positive? It's perspective. It's a fight, right? We're in a battle. We're on a quest. I love this. I heard this man say that we're on a quest, and wherever there's a treasure, there's always a dragon. But the flip side of that, the beautiful thing of that too, is wherever there's a dragon, there's a treasure. So when we encounter the dragon, and we do and we will, we have to look around and say, okay, where's the treasure? But our, tendency is to be focused on the dragon. And oh no, there's a dragon. So back to the scripture, right? So I want to come down to, again to 34 here. This is the incense. Because I think this is very relational to us as a people. Last night, I revisited Acts chapter 13, the Antioch model of the church, right? And verses 1 through, I think it's 3, it talks about Paul and Barnabas and Niger and man from Syrian, all these people from these different nations together praying and fasting. Now, any of you that fast in here, maybe some of you do it really well, and praise the Lord for that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. But oftentimes when we're fasting, we can tend to get a little grumpy. Right? Irritable. Irritated. So you got all these men from all these nations, because that's what was happening in Antioch. Right? It's very clear in the scriptures for a reason. Niger means black man. The guy from, I can't think of the island right now, he's Greek. You got all these guys from these different nations that are there, and they're fasting and praying together, and probably tight quarters, and they've had to grind together, and they're offering up prayers, right? And then it was at that point, though, that God, the Holy Spirit, says, okay, separate those two for me, and then send them. So, how does this relate to us as to the incense, right? Well, let's read it. Verse 34. Then the Lord said to Moses, there's a lot of that, right? Then the Lord said to Moses, take for yourselves spices, stacy, and onyeka, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and galbanim, spices with pure frankincense. There shall be an equal part of each one, right? So you have this eclectic mix of different, that's the point, the eclectic mix of these different herbs and spices to make this incense. And it's equal parts of them. Every tribe, nation, and tongue. Equal parts of them. And I love Lion and Judah because we are an expression of every tribe, nation, and tongue. I love it when Brian Crawford from Chosen People was here. He said, one thing that's missing so much of is the Jewish people. And so I'm believing. I'm believing that we're going to be like the church, the body that the Lord had intended from the beginning. Verse 35, with it you shall make incense, a perfume, the work of a perfumer, salted, pure, and holy. You shall beat some of it very fine. This is the point I want to make. We have to come together in community. And I say this all the time, and in our American minds, it goes in one ear and out the other. So do me a favor right now. Go like this. So when I say this, you guys online too, it'll stick. You have to be in community with the brothers and sisters, or you will not grow and you will not be the authentic church. Okay. Did it stick? Because we don't really buy that. But that's the model. And it's going to cause a pounding, a grinding, in other words, right? So you guys are familiar with the mortar and pestle, right? You have the stone and the stone bowl, and you put your herbs and stuff, spices in there, and then you grind them with this pestle, right? And it's like, it makes a lot of noise, it's grind until it's a fine powder. And that's what the Lord is prescribing here. Take equal parts of all of these herbs and spices, or cultures, personalities, and put them in the grinder and grind them fine. Ouch, you're right. But it becomes a beautiful, fragrant incense to the Lord. And that's the way that he requires it. So let's go to Revelation chapter 8 for a second here. Because this is what the incense represent in the Bible. And it's in a few places, but we'll go to Revelation chapter 8, verse 4. Well, I'll start in 3. Well, I'm going to start in 1. When the Lamb broke the 7th seal, who's the Lamb? The Lamb that was slain. 29 times, 27, 29 times in the book of Revelation alone, the last book of the Bible, the revelation of Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, he is called the Lamb 27 times. Unfortunately, a lot of the church today, they say the Lamb, but they don't really know what that means. What does it mean? You guys know, he's our Passover lamb. So if we want to understand what it might look like when Yeshua comes back, we can go to the Passover story. Right? There's nothing new under the sun, and God likes to use shadows and types and circular, he continues to cycles and continues to bring it forth. But anyways, that's a side note. When the Lamb broke the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. Oh, Lord, we couldn't make 30 seconds in this room already. See? And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and the 7 trumpets were given to them. Another angel came and stood at the altar holding the golden censer, and much incense was given to him, so that he might add it to the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints went up before God out of the angel's hands. So we've got to be grinded together. And when we are, we need to be so comfortable with each other. We need to be so, like I talked last night, naked and bare before each other, and willing to be that. To enter into this priestly calling, and to enter into the place to where we can cry with each other and overwhelm encounters of the Lord, and not be, holding back and afraid to be that open and that bare. And it takes this grinding, it takes the pounding, it takes that pressure in order for us to come together in that way and deal with it. We've got to be willing to deal with each other. A couple months ago, there was a person here, and I during Friday night service, and the lights were out, and I said, okay, let's be quiet, let's enter into this really holy moment. And I could see this person's face was glowing from their phone. So I said something to them in front of everybody. And they haven't been back. And then I saw them actually at the gym the other night. And they acted like they didn't see me. And it's like, I can't even call you to holiness? I can't even as a leader, as a like that's my calling, guys. That's my job. Like that's the job the Lord has given me. I can't even call you, like, what are we doing? Like, we can't be this ground incense that's necessary for our prayers to reach God. Oh, hear that again. If you can't take somebody saying, hey, get off your phone, we're in the sanctuary of the Lord, it's Shabbat, like we're here to worship God, and we're offended in such a way that we separate ourselves from that, like, your prayers are not going to be answered. And I know that's a bold statement, but I say it believing it. Same for me, right? What does Peter say? I think it's Peter, right? That talks about a husband that doesn't treat his wife well, his prayers won't be answered. So if we can't figure it out, work it out, and be willing to have difficult conversations, hard encounters, right? I've been talking the 4 characteristics of an apostolic church. One is confrontation. That's not just confronting the world's junk. That's confronting each other's junk. Believe you me, I'm going to tell you right now, there are plenty of people that confront me on my junk. I need it. There's plenty of people that do. Some of it is rightfully so, and it's made me think, and it's brought me to repentance. It's helped me grow. Some of it's not. Now, I'm not running out of here, I've wrestled and struggled. I've got a Jewish man as a spiritual father. I can tell you right now, he doesn't play games. Like, he's honest. And we've got to be able to be honest. Now, what's the point, right? Like, the point is love. The point is love. But if we've got to be able to be honest with each other, have hard conversations because we love each other enough. We value. And if you can't love each other enough, like I said last night, do it because you love Jesus. Because he told you to love one another. Right? We've got to value each other enough that we're willing to be uncomfortable to come together in unity. But most people are so self-centered that they don't want to be uncomfortable to be in relationship and unity with other people. So somebody makes them feel bad about themselves, and they run off, and they remove themselves from it. They never examine themselves to say, that was harsh, but was there truth in it? Because sometimes it's harsh. I can be pretty blunt. I know that. Lord help me. My heart is like, I can excuse myself, but I'm not, like, I need to do better, right? But I do examine myself. Somebody sent me something very challenging because I challenged them, and I examined the statements that they made, and there was truth in it. And I said, Lord, I repent, help me. Now, I may have been right in what I said, but wrong in my approach. But we've got to be able to, the point is, right, we've got to be able to have those conversations, right? Jesus prays in John 17 that we would be one as him and the Father are one, but we're not going to do it without some abrasive confrontation. We're only going to do that by being willing and valuing each other enough to have those conversations. Sometimes we have to take a breath and say, hey, okay, I'm getting a little emotionally worked up here. I need to separate myself from this conversation for a moment so I can get myself together, collect myself, and let's re-engage in this conversation after we've cooled down. Now that is wisdom. And I didn't grow up in a household like that. I don't know if any of you did. my parents, my mom and stepdad, it was like, woo, right? Until something broke, whatever it was. So sometimes, there's wisdom in, okay, let's take a breath, but not, hey, let's take a breath and never talk about this again and never see each other again, right? It's like, okay, things are heated. Let's take a breath. We need that grinding. That's the point, right? Getting back to the incense. We need that grinding. If we want our prayers to be answered, if we want to hasten the day of the return of the Lord, we need to be willing to grind it. I can tell you this, again, characteristic number 2 of being an apostolic or an authentic church is understanding the importance of Israel and the Jewish people. And I can tell you right now, you begin to share the gospel with Jewish people. You begin to witness to Jewish people and go after that. The hard thing is coming. They're going to curse you in the right atmosphere. They may spit at you. They may, So if you can't handle me saying, get off of your phone, you're not going to handle that, and you're not going to be authentic. You're not going to be sent. You're not going to be effective. You're not going to be powerful. You're not going to walk in the power of the Lord. You're not going to be apostolic. I'm not talking about being an apostle. You guys understand when I say that. I know most of you do. I'm not talking about being an apostle. Now, I believe in the fivefold ministry: apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, for the equipping of the saints, until we all come together in unity. We have not reached unity yet, so God is still giving those graces to men to enter into those offices to help us obtain unity. But I'm talking about being apostolic in the sense of the apostolic church, the sent church. So if we can't do these wrestling to become those incense to the Lord, then we're not going to be able to do that. If we can't do it together with our brothers and sisters, our family and Messiah, we're not going to be able to do it with those who hate us. If we can't do it with those who are supposed to love one another, we're not going to be able to do it with those who hate us. Are we, David? We're not. The first sign of conflict, and you're going to run. But if we can do it with each other, then that conflict comes and we know how to work it out. We know how to deal with it, and we see the power of God break into those places. Then when it comes, we don't run from it, we run to it. Right, Michelle? We hear it over on the corner and go, oh, that's where we need to be. Let's go. And when you walk in that kind of unity, what happens, Michelle? You go over there and these hardcore gangbangers end up asking you, no, pray for us. So it's powerful, right, and effective. And then the Lord says in verse 38, whoever shall make any like it to use as perfume shall be cut off from his people, right? It's holy and perfect, and your hot yoga rooms and all that junk where you're trying to manufacture peace and unity that isn't from God is garbage, and it's stinky perfume, and there's no blessing for you. They're trying to manufacture it all the time, right? People, we see it. But it's interesting, because we're going to talk about the Shabbat here in a minute. And I was thinking about this as I was in the prayer room and meditating on the Shabbat and talking to the Lord about it. So there should be an expectation. I love it, Rachel, what you said last. I'm ready to get this thing going. So there should be this expectation, this anxiety in a good way, this anxiousness, this excitement for the Shabbat. Now, I think about my time in the world and what Friday night used to mean to me. Could anybody feel where I'm going? There was an excitement, an energy, an anticipation for the party. Isn't it interesting how the devil counterfeits everything? Everything holy. Think about all these pagan religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, and they have incense they burn. God said, if anybody makes this and uses it other than my purposes, let him be cursed.
Does that mean that if we've got an
You know, Kathy, I when I read this the first time, because I, like a lot of people probably didn't start out this way. I started in Genesis and read through it. And if I remember correctly, I literally had my incense burner burning with an incense in it, got up, put that thing out, threw it in the trash, and threw all of our incense away. That did happen. Just like the Christmas tree. Ding, out, gone. Like, you know, these things, right? But when I was a child, I acted like a child. I walked like a child and I talked like a child. But when I became mature, I put away childish things. So I'm okay. I burn incense now. I'm not like burning them to worship anything. I worship the Lord. I think they smell nice, right? Sometimes you walk into my office. Some of you walked into my office or my wife's office, and it's like, man, it smells really good in here. I think they smell nice. I'm not like trying to mix God's specific, detailed incense for the tabernacle. I have some, and I've come into the sanctuary with my censer, right, before during different prayer nights and stuff, and burnt the temple incense, like, because I have a bunch of them. But I wouldn't do that just for no reason in my office. But I that's. Do you burn scented candles? Well, you're not allowed to. Yeah. But most of us would burn a scented candle and not even think a thing about it. Well, what's the difference? Why are you burning a scented candle? Are you burning it to worship God? I mean, or is it because it smells nice? Right? You had your...
Well, I was going to go to the scented candle thing. So I remember when you finally got the revelation and we were able to bring incense back into our house. He said, well, what's the difference between that and a candle?
We've got to be willing to be teachable. Yes. We've got to be willing to grow. We've got to be willing. You know, I mean, I know in my life, like, God has called me to move forward with something. And I've moved forward with that thing. And then he's called an audible and had me go. I think, sometimes he said, will you, like, remember a few chapters back in chapter 19, God told Moses, tell the people to clothe themselves, put on their garments, and prepare themselves for 3 days to meet him at the mountain. And he said, tell them that when they hear the shofar from heaven, to come to the mountain. You guys remember what happened? They didn't. They were afraid. Right? And you remember I kept saying, God kept saying, like, really all I want you to do, he said it in Exodus 16, 19, what I want from you is to hear my voice and obey me. Hear my voice and obey me. Hear my voice and obey me. But, our nature is that we need something to look at. We need something to read. We need something concrete. We're always guessing, second guessing, triple guessing, quadruple guessing. Are we really hearing from God? Is that really him? Is that really what he wanted? All these things. And that's what he wants from, like, again, this doesn't negate, please hear what I'm saying, doesn't negate the validity of the Bible, of the Torah, of the Ten Commandments. God gave them to us. They are God's self-revelation. But that was never his desire. His desire was never to have to write it down. His desire was to be in relationship with us and us to walk. Like, your desire as parents or friends or daughters or mothers or fathers is to be in relationship. You never want to have to put that note on the fridge. Kids, do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, right? You just want them to be in relationship with you. But us being who we are, we needed that thing written down. Right from the beginning, right? And like, God created the heavens and the earth, again, populated it, put Adam on it, gave him one rule. Gave him one rule. Out of every tree in the garden you can eat from. Which would incline us to think that there were multiple sources of food in the garden. That he wasn't just eating manna every day, right? But that he had pineapples and apples and grapes and oranges and lemons and papayas and, right? All of these things, mangoes and bananas. Like, yeah, the plethora of things to choose from. And there was just one thing that he couldn't have. And, he ate that one thing, right? Whether it was the woman that you gave me did it, or the snake, tricked me, whatever, right? So he writes it down. But so getting back to the incense thing, right, is like, I think, are you willing to throw it out for me? But that's not really what I want. Again, I want your whole heart. I want you to love me and be faithful to me. That's what I want. Now we have this beautiful book of words that guide us into relationship with them, that help us to have something because of our nature to look at. Because, we'll see here in a second, if we don't have that, then we'll make it ourselves. Let me ask, do you think God gave Israel the blueprint for the tabernacle for the sake of God or the sake of Israel? For the sake of Israel. God doesn't need somewhere to dwell. Right? He said, I'm giving you this blueprint because I want to dwell with you, among you, in you. Because if I don't give you a place to focus your energy, you'll forget about me. Because you think you need a place and a space to worship me, but you don't really. I mean, it's beautiful to come together as a body in a local building, in a building, to be able to come together. We need to. We're supposed to, and we should. And it's beautiful. I can get into church history of why the building began. Because it used to just be house, but they were in the temple day to day. But they needed a centralized place to come together. Because otherwise people tend to isolate themselves in little pockets. And look at us today, even with our church buildings. That pocket and this pocket and that pocket and this pocket and that pocket and this pocket and that pocket. What we need, and you guys ain't going to like this, so do this. No, I'm kidding. We need persecution. If we really want to become the church, we need persecution. Because it was when persecution ended over the church that the church turned in on itself. Before persecution, they were so busy trying to fulfill the commandment of the Lord to go to all the ends of the earth and spread the gospel and not die doing it, or maybe die doing it. Some of them said, don't pray for me. Ignatius said, don't pray for me. I'm on my way to be martyred, and I'm not asking you to pray for me, because to be absent from the body is to be present with Christ. But yeah, once that stopped, then we turned in on each other. And we started, you're burning incense in your house, you're a wicked person. You're a pagan. Or, all these things. Now, we need correct doctrine. We need correct theology. We need that, don't get me wrong. We need that. And I think God allowed those things to happen for that reason. There's some crazy stuff. There was so much Jesus wasn't God. He was this demiurge, or God, the God of the Old Testament was a demiurge who, he was one God, and then Jesus came. Doesn't that sound familiar? And then Jesus came, there's another God, he's the actual God, or the vice versa. Jesus wasn't actually a God, he was a created being. He's reason, the logos, all these things. Crazy stuff, right? God was just one God, not three persons, but three modes. And the Father, so the Father came down out of heaven and walked as Jesus. Heaven was empty. And walked as Jesus, and then died on the cross, and then came as the Holy Spirit. Like, it's so we needed that to go through and create sound doctrine, to create sound theology, and to examine the Bible and the words, and even in that, though, then men get a hold of it and they put their own ideas and concepts in it, and their own traditions, and it's and then they get so concerned that it looks too Jewish, so they do these other traditions that they can remove themselves from the Jewishness of of the faith, and then it just goes on, right? But persecution will come back soon because we need it, and then we'll stop turning in on each other, and we'll cling to each other because we'll have to, and it will be all about the return of Jesus again, and then things will be good, right? So I want to bounce over here to Exodus 31, and I'm going to go to verse 12. I've been excited about this. So we just kind of finished up talking about the elements of the tabernacle. We talked about the furniture, and then it shifted. So it talked about the building of it, what it should look like, the furniture, the material aspects of the tabernacle, and then it talked about the sacrifices, like what happens inside the tabernacle, and then it talked about some of the other elements, like the anointing oil, the incense, some of the other things that would be offered inside of the tabernacle. And we talked about the priests, their garments last time, what they would look like, and how they should operate. Right, so the material of the tabernacle, the physical tabernacle, the priesthood, the sacrifices that the priesthood offered, the things that the priesthood offers, like the incense and the oil and those things, right? And then it goes in 31. It talks about the skilled craftsman, and I will read this though out of 31, verse 6. Behold, I have appointed with Oholiab, the son of Ashamach, of the tribe of Dan, and in the hearts of all who are skillful, I have put skill, that they may make all that I have commanded. So God gives every man skill, right? Was it me and you, James, that were talking last night about surgeons? How I believe that even the surgeon that may claim atheism and doesn't believe that God exists, or says they don't, because every man knows the Bible says an atheist is a farce, right? They've been given a skill in their heart by God to perform His tasks. So God says, these specific people I've anointed in a special way, but then also all of those who have skill in their hearts, and He says, I've put that skill there, right, to call all of them forward. So, verse 12, we're going to talk about the Shabbat, the Sabbath. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, But as for you, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, You shall surely observe my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord who sanctifies you, or makes you holy, or cuts you apart, cuts you out, separates you, makes you separate. That's how important the Sabbath is. It's a sign. Now, He's given us another sign now for the new covenant. Does anybody know what that is? What is it, James? The Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a seal, is a sign, is a pledge of the new covenant. But He gave the Shabbat to Israel as a sign, as a seal, as a pledge, as an engagement. We just sang that song. What was the title of it?
Kadodi.
Yeah, Kadodi. What does it mean?
Come, my beloved.
Come, my beloved. So the rabbinic thought and tradition is that that it's like a bride or a queen the Sabbath day. And we're going to look at some various, I'm going to share some things with you. So I love this because, again, my point is we just kind of wrapped up talking about the physical tabernacle and the elements of it. Now, when we get to chapter 32, something interesting happens. God calls Moses up the mountain to receive the law from God and the tablets, the Ten Commandments. What happens while Moses is gone? The golden calf. They make something, right? They make something of space, Kathy. So I love this, that God, he finishes the instructions, right? I mean, why is this there? All of a sudden, why we're talking about the tabernacle, and we're talking about the furniture, and we're talking about the priesthood, and then suddenly, God reiterates the Shabbat as a sign. Not the tabernacle, and the tabernacle is, but not the tabernacle. He mentions the Sabbath as a sign that he's their God, the God that sanctifies them. Not the tabernacle, right? The tabernacle was given because he wants to dwell among them, wants to dwell in them. But the Sabbath was given as a sign to remind them that he is the God who sanctifies them, who makes them holy. So, Heschel, in his book, The Sabbath, talks about space and time, and how the tabernacle is a sanctuary in space, and the Sabbath is a sanctuary in time. Now we know, as we see with the golden calf, that people know what to do with space. Fill it up. We don't know what to do with time. Like our words, I love your painting last night, Rosemarie, about our words creating. I mean, our words create, they fill up space. So, like, our inability to be quiet and be silent is because we don't know what to do with time. It's uncomfortable to sit before time without filling it up. So, we're given an opportunity to remove ourselves from the filling up of space and enter into the figuring out what to do with time. And that's the Shabbat, and that's the place where God appears. I love it. He's not the God confined. Right? Do you guys remember when we defined Ishir Aheh? Like we talked about, like all the other gods, that's the I am that I am, or I will be who I will be. Like, so all the other gods of the other nations dwell in space. They require a place. But our God is a God who breaks forth in action in history and time. So he gives us the Sabbath as measured in what? What's the Sabbath measured in? Time. It's a day and time. It's not a space. It's a time. And it's very interesting. I mean, it comes from God himself. He created for 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. And we're actually going to read this here in a second. Hey, Michelle, I've printed off a few copies of these quotes. I don't know, you want to hand some? I don't know how many. I think I got 10 or something here. I don't know. These are some quotes from Abraham Heschel. Kira's like, I want one. There's just a few quotes. They're really good.
I actually had a question for you.
Yeah, okay.
What book did you say
So this book is, it's called The Sabbath.
Oh, okay.
I've got a couple of books that I'm reading. I've referenced Heschel a few times, like, yeah.
How to spell
Heschel is, it's Abraham Joshua. Heschel is Heschel. Yeah, it is. This is a fantastic book. You know, I mean, so Heschel was a, Tanakh Old Testament scholar, a rabbi. But I love it, as I've mentioned to you guys, he was very friendly with Christians. And he was very friendly with Martin Luther King Jr. And he's actually quoted as saying, if you want to experience the Spirit of God on earth, go to an African American church. Like, it's pretty cool, right? I mean, did he? I'm sure he heard the gospel. I mean, if he's running around with Martin Luther King Jr., I'm sure he heard the gospel and others like that, I'm sure he was familiar with it. But, so I'm going to finish reading this, and I really want to spend some time talking about the Shabbat. This is like really important, guys. I'm telling you. Like the reason why you're being distracted and talking and drifting is because this is important. The dragon is here. But where there's a dragon, there's a treasure. Now I'm becoming more and more aware of who I am and my calling. A rabbi is like the geologist of the soul. I can lead you to the treasure, but you have to do the digging. And I'm getting this understanding more and more as in, okay, you just keep plowing, you just keep leading to the treasure, and you let those that want to do the digging do the digging. So if you want to do the digging, we're here to dig today. There's treasure here to find, and I know it, and I believe it. So I encourage you to get your shovels out and to do the digging. So I'm gonna read this section, and I may just finish here because the Shabbat is so good, and it's a principle. It's a creation principle, right? Again, in Genesis, we read that God created the heavens and earth for 6 days. He created, and on the seventh day He rested. Did God get exhausted and need a rest? Absolutely not. Now here's something, I'm gonna read this quote from a secular Zionist thinker, author. Their name was Ahad Ha'am. Their pen name is Asher Zui Hirsch Ginsburg. Now, again, atheist, secular Zionist, not a believer at all, not even a Old Testament believer. But they said he said more than the Jews have kept the Sabbath, Sabbath has kept the Jews. This is how foundational. And listen, we're Gentiles, like, the new covenant came, Yeshua, so we're not, what have I said? Like, because we're going to read, if you don't keep the Sabbath, then that person should die. Right? Like there was a blessing and a curse that came along with the law, with the instruction. If you do this, there's a blessing. If you don't, there's a curse, right? But cursed is every man who hangs on a tree. What does that mean? That means the man who hung on a tree for you and me took the curse out of the way. Michelle, what did he leave? The blessing. So today, if you don't keep the Sabbath, you surely won't die in a way, but you will. But if you recognize it and understand it and begin to live your life towards it, you will receive the blessing. Much like this quote, more than the Jews kept the Sabbath kept the Jews. More than the Christian, the believer, the follower of Yeshua has to keep the Sabbath will keep the follower. Because it's about relationship, right? It's the fourth of the 10 commandments. The first 6 commandments of the 10 commandments are about relationship with God. The commandments, the covenant period, right, is what? It is word parameters set that enter us into relationship. So the Sabbath being the fourth commandment is one of the 6 that are in relation to the relationship with God. The other 4 are in relation to relationship with man. So it was so important to him that he made it the fourth commandment. And actually, if we look at the 10 commandments space, according to verses in the Bible, it is 33% of the space given for the 10 commandments. So he gave a good amount of energy to the Shabbat, to the Sabbath, because he says it's a sign. It's a sign. It's not a law, it's a gift. It's not a rule, it's a blessing. It's a bride. It's an offering. It's an offering, a special time, a special place. Again, the counterfeit. Why is it that the world feels excited on Friday night to enter into the debauchery of the world, right? Let's be real. It's a real thing. Because the Sabbath itself, which begins at Friday night on sundown, has a special power from God upon it. How exciting is it to come together on Friday nights here at Lion of Judah? It's Meshuggah that more people don't come. It's crazy. But yeah, that's how special, right? God created the heavens and the earth 6 days, and he called them good, right? We opened, Kathy, we were talking. He said they're good, and everything that he made was good. But then the 7th day, he rested and called it holy. He sanctified it. Kodesh, it's the same word, Kodesh. He sanctified it. He made it holy. He called it holy. That's the first time in the Bible that the word holy is used. And it's used talking about the Sabbath. Now, I'll be honest with you. Right? I think of what Jesus said. Oh my gosh, David, right? Sabbath was like the Pharisees are giving Jesus a hard time because his disciples are sifting grain because they're hungry. They're walking through a field. And they're shucking the grain, getting the chaff off of it so they can eat it. And they're giving him a hard time, and he says, the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. It's a gift. It's a gift and an opportunity for us to be in relationship with him. Well, let me read this. Again, I'm going to start in verse 12, and I'll just read to 18. But as for you, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, you shall surely observe my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord who sanctifies you. I mean, that right there is powerful. Right? That's a mic drop. I've given this to you to know that, so you'll remember I'm the one who calls you holy. Therefore, you are to observe the Sabbath, for it is holy to you. That statement right there. It's not holy to God. It's holy to you. It's set apart for you. He's telling you right there what Jesus, the very thing that Jesus said. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was cut out. Like, what does holy mean? Cut apart, separate, cut off, put over here special for you. That's amazing, isn't it, Michelle? Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. Again, I talked about that, right? The curse has been taken out of the way. So you won't die necessarily, but you won't gain the way. Like, you won't be drug off and stoned to death. But I can tell you that, like, here's some scientific, for the scientific minds in the life. There are studies that in the room and online, there are studies that show, men especially, if you take even a staycation, a stay-at-home vacation, once a year, it will add up to 10 years of a longer life. Now, an interesting math to do is the average lifespan, that 10 years would equate to the number of Shabbats. Isn't that pretty interesting, right? Like God even wanted the animals to rest. Farmers can tell you if you overwork a field, it'll stop producing, it'll die, and the crops will die, it'll bear no fruit. If you overwork your animals, they'll die, or they'll die quicker. They won't be healthy, they won't produce as well. So, yeah, you may not be drug out of the, drug out into the field and stoned to death anymore, but you'll pay. You won't produce the fruit that you could have. You'll suffer loss. Not as unto like the loss of your salvation, but you'll suffer loss, right? We'll all stand before a judgment seat one day, Paul talks about, and we'll be tried as if by fire. And the things that we built from wood, straw, and stubble, those things will be burnt up. The things that we built on precious things, stones and gold and those types of things, they'll remain. Right? Building relationship with God on the Shabbat is like building on fine gold. Oh, fine gold. And those things that were built in that time of not running after earthly treasures and civilization and societal increase and blessing, those things that are built in relationship with God and family, because it's a time of family too. So like this is Shabbat, guys. This is a blessing of the Lord to be on Shabbat, like in His Word, eating food together, fellowshipping, loving one another, serving one another. This is Shabbat. It doesn't mean doing nothing. Like we'll break down the word here. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It just means doing the right things. I mean, it may mean taking a nap, right? A Shabbat shluff. That means a Shabbat nap, a Sabbath nap. So, verse 15, for 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day there is a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Now look, he said it was holy for you. Now it's holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall surely die. So the sons of Israel shall observe the Sabbath to celebrate the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. What is it? To celebrate. To what? Come on, Philip, say it louder. You're the only one that gets it. To celebrate. Not to, like, was it you and I that were talking about prayer? And if we really understood the engagement that God is listening to us, and that we're talking to Him. I think when we were driving down the road the other day, it's like, and those of us in the room that know that this is communication with God. This is relationship and fellowship with God, like praying. So when we have that understanding, prayer it's not a chore anymore. It's a celebration. I mean, it's like Passover. I was talking to a gentleman that I met the other day, and I guess he had never heard this. This is interesting because I say this all the time. Like the feast days, Passover and those types of things, the Shabbat, it's not that we have to, it's that we get to. It's not that we have to talk to God, it's that we get to talk to God. My goodness, right? Think about that. And He listens. So the Shabbat's a celebration. It's not a, oh man, I got to get off my phone. I can't do that. It's not, again, perspective. Our perspective is always the negative. I can't, and can't, instead of, man, I can, and I get to, and this is amazing. Verse 17, it is a sign between me and the sons of Israel. Like, okay, let me ask you. Are you grafted into the tree? Are you grafted into the commonwealth? Right? This isn't taking anything from Israel, because you guys know how I stand on that. I've been grafted into that same tree. I've been grafted into that commonwealth. I've been grafted into it. I don't have to, I get to. I've been grafted into the blessing. I've been grafted into the sign. I've been grafted into the fact that the Sabbath will keep me. I've been grafted into that reality. I've been grafted into the blessings. Jesus took the curses out of the way, but the blessings are there. He is the rabbi, and he has taken us to the treasure. And we got to do the digging. Now there's a dragon there because there's a treasure there, right? But because there's a dragon, there's a treasure. So it's going to try to pull you away, and it's going to try to convince you that you can't. How will you do this? How will you make it? How can you survive? Right? When I read from this devotional, our misgivings of Jesus, when it comes to practical things, we're like, yeah, but you have nothing to draw with. So if I don't do this and I don't do that, then I won't have. Where are you going to get your money from to give to me, Jesus? You don't even have a bucket to draw with. So when, and I get so we really stress the principle of the Shabbat, but the reality is the day itself and time is special. And we can feel it, we can sense it, and we can see it. And we can feel it. Think about it. If you pause for a moment, and if you were to say out loud, God, is your Sabbath special? And see if he doesn't witness in your inner being that, yeah. God, is the day itself special? And see if he doesn't witness with your inner being that, yeah, I sanctified it. I sanctified it. I called it holy. Listen to this. This is so good. I'm going to start at 17 again. It is a sign between me and the sons of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, but on the seventh day he ceased from labor and was refreshed. The Lord himself. 6 days created and then ceased. Like, think about this. Like, the number 7 biblically is the number of completion. The 7 spirits of God. There's 7 days in a week. I mean, we could go on and on, right? The number 7 is the number of completion. So he created for 6 days, and then how did he complete it? By resting. By resting. Did God need to rest? No. He's inexhaustible. He didn't get weary and tired. What does this word refreshed mean? That's what jumped out of the page to me this morning. So I did a little word study on it. Right? He ceased, he stopped, and was refreshed. How does God be refreshed? Is he sweating? Did he need a cold drink of water? All right? So let's look at it. The word is nefesh, not nefesh. So nefesh speaks of the soul, the being, or being. The Lord made man out of the clay of the earth and then breathed into his nostrils, and he became a living nefesh. But this is nefesh. Like nefesh is with an E, nefesh is with an A. So it's a slightly different word, but they're connected. They're connected as we would think they would be, right? So some simple definitions would be to breathe freely, to catch one's breath, to be refreshed after labor, to recover vitality. Now again, God didn't need rest. We needed an example. He made everything in 6 days, and then he stopped and ceased and was refreshed by what he had made. He looked at it and was like, this is good. He stopped and was refreshed by the thought of the relationship that he created, because God is love. Love needs something to aim its affections at. He was refreshed by the idea that he created it and it was complete, and it would be complete in relationship, and then he takes that day of relationship with man and calls it holy, cuts it apart, makes it separate, makes it special, and then says that will be a sign. Like what is the sign to the world that we will that we're different? What's the sign? As believers and followers of Jesus, what is the sign that makes us different? Is it a necklace, a cross necklace on our neck? Or is it the fact that we say that we know the one true God? That we are in relationship with God? That we know Him? What is the thing that the church has that's going to provoke the Jews to jealousy? An undeniable relationship with God. So what is the Sabbath for you and I? An opportunity in a special way to enter in to that relationship that will make it undeniable to the world. It is a sign that we are holy to God. It's a sign. So, this, in the Hebrew, this, and he was refreshed, would be vayin nefesh. This is an anthropomorphic language, which means like he's using human description of a God, right? God doesn't necessarily have arms and hands and eyes, right? He's a spirit. But it's using language so that we can understand. But I love this concept, guys, right? Like the brain is the most powerful, amazing mechanism or thing on the planet, right? It really is. So, in a way, to think that God, that we think like Him, we're created in His image in that way, and that thought and wisdom and contemplation and all those things come from our brains, in that, I don't know. That might be even too far for me to even explain at this moment. It's in my head and in my heart, but I don't think I can vocalize it yet. So we'll move on. But it's anthropomorphic language. It does not mean God was tired. It describes divine rest in human terms, ceasing from creating work and entering into the enjoyment of what was complete. He created it all, again, for relationship, and it was complete. And He was excited. Man, it's done. Now I get to enter into this relationship, and it's going to be good. He was excited. Think about this. He's excited to be in relationship with you. Yeah.
I was just thinking how to win Muslim people to the Lord. It said, "Do you think Allah loves you? Does Allah know you?" He does not. They do all this stuff because out of fear, right? The relationship's all about fear, but that's the way, I guess, now to win them, because they don't, because we believe Allah probably is the devil, but they don't realize, we can share that our God loves us and knows us, and we can know Him. Such a big, that's such a revelation.
That is the expression to the world of our faith.
Because I'd like to share that with some Muslim people and say, Doesn't care.
They can never be in his presence. They can't be in his presence. He's not a father, right? They declare it every day, 5 times a day, that he's not a father, that he's inaccessible, that he doesn't, have relationship with man. And I don't, I don't want to go down that road, but it's actually a very sensual thing that is the carrot, the dangling carrot before the Muslim men that promote that religion. You can have 72 virgins, and so it's actually a very sensual thing. But I don't want to go down that road. I want to stay on the teaching we're on right now. It's about the Shabbat. It's about relations. I understand what you're saying, but I want to stay. I want to remain. You'll get me off. Not you, me. Like, yeah, not you, me. Like, I'll get going out somewhere. So Rashi, his comments on this, he says, one who rests, one's soul returns, and when one rests, one's soul returns and breathes again. So in other words, like we can get so, how many of us have gotten so where we're exerting ourselves so much that we stop and sit down, and it's almost like you feel yourself come back in your body. You know what right? Have you not? And you're like you're doing something that's really engaging and really you're giving all that you have. I feel it a lot when I'm preaching. And then it's over and I'll still be wound up a little bit or whatever, and then I'll sit down. I'll finally get on the couch and I'll sit down, and it's like, especially on Sunday afternoons after, I preached on Friday, and then I taught on Saturday, and then I, preached on Sunday, and then I'll sit down, and it's, it'll be like, almost I feel myself almost returning, right? So that's Rashi. Again, some beautiful stuff, like rabbinic, as Paul said, as for their zeal, they have great zeal. It's just without understanding, right? It's without revelation. It's without knowledge. They have knowledge but no revelation. Some things from the Midrash concerning that particular, some commentary. The Midrash is like Jewish commentary, rabbinic commentary on scriptures. It says, can the Creator become weary? We asked that question, right? The answer is no. The Torah speaks in language of humanity. The rabbis explain God did not recover from exhaustion. God entered into delight at completion. Shabbat marks harmony and wholeness. Refreshment is the joy of completion, not recovery from fatigue. So good, right? So I want to read a few quotes from Heschel here from this book. I would encourage you guys to get this. This book is amazing. Again, Heschel, Sabbath. It's deep. He's a deep Jewish thinker and philosopher. So it's deep. It's not something that you can tear through. If you tear through it, you miss it. If you read this book in a day or two, you missed it. Just go back and read it again. And then if you read it again in a day or two, go back and read it again. Because it's really deep. There's some deep stuff in there. It's like stuff to chew on. So for instance, let's see if I can, I had a couple, oh yeah, I had it marked. I'm going to read a little bit of this. Is that okay? Yeah. I'm going to read like a page. So he says, unlike the Day of Atonement, the Sabbath is not dedicated exclusively to spiritual goals. It is a day of the soul as well as of the body. Comfort and pleasure are integral parts of the Sabbath observance. Man in his entirety, all his faculties must share its blessing. Right? So your whole body, mind, spirit, your whole being should share in the blessing of the Shabbat. It's good to eat good food. It's, for those of us who are in marital relationship, it's a good time to be intimate with your spouse. It's a good time to engage in the beauty of the completion of God's work. And I know that's like, people are like, what did he just say? Yes. Like God created intimacy between a husband and wife. It's a beautiful thing, right? It's good to enjoy God's creation. Maybe take a walk in nature. It's good to be in His Word. It's good to be in fellowship with one another. It's good to have a meal together. Engage all of our senses, our whole being, into the blessing of the observance of Shabbat. And he goes into this story. A prince was once sent into captivity and compelled to live anonymously among rude and illiterate people. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like that's our mission right now. Years passed by, and he languished with the longing for his royal father, for his native land. One day, a secret communication reached him in which his father promised to bring him back to the palace, urging him not to unlearn his princely manner. Doesn't this sound familiar, guys? Right? Like, great was the joy of the prince, and he was eager to celebrate the day. But no one is able to celebrate alone. So he invited the people to the local tavern and ordered ample food and drinks for all of them. It was a sumptuous feast, and they were all full of rejoicing. The people, because of the drinks, and the prince in anticipation of his return to the palace. The soul cannot celebrate alone, so the body must be invited to partake in the rejoicing of the Sabbath. Isn't that good? I'll read that part of it. The soul cannot celebrate alone, so the body must be invited to participate in the rejoicing of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a reminder of two worlds, this world and the world to come. It is an example of both worlds, for the Sabbath is joy, holiness, and rest. Excuse me. I see you, dragon. Thank you. So I'm going to start back over. The Sabbath is a reminder of two worlds, this world and the world to come. It is an example of both worlds, for the Sabbath is joy, holiness, and rest. Joy is part of this world. Holiness and rest are something of the world to come. It's really good. I mean, it's so amazing to me, the connection between the Jewish thought and Christianity today, and somehow crazily it's gotten separate. I mean, there's lots of reasons why it's in the house. But, I mean, doesn't that sound very expectant of the Messiah? I mean, that is one of the thoughts that's expressed by the rabbinic thought and tradition, is that it is a day of the Messiah. It is a day of expectation, a day of focus on the expectation of the Messiah. Why? Because he's speaking about a world that is to come. The world that is to come is the Messianic reign. Like, this return of Jesus isn't poof, all of a sudden Christian goyim stuff, right? Gentile stuff. Our faith comes from a Jewish root. And the Sabbath, I mean, when we understand that, like, okay, this is a time for us to come together. That's what I love about this Torah study that we do, a Messianic, a Torah study from a Messianic perspective, seeking Jesus in all things. He's seeking the nature of God in all things. And even in this portion, right, like if I continue, but I'm not, and I encourage you to read the rest of it. Because Moses goes up the mountain for 40 days once. And he gets the covenant, and he comes back down. The people are, they're making the golden calf, and the Hebrew verbiage there is like they're in debauchery. They're engaging in debauchery. Like they're eating and drinking and doing all, they're They went wild. And Moses sees it and breaks the covenant. Then he intercedes for them, right? He comes and he's willing to lay his life down for them. And then he goes back up the mountain and recovers the covenant and comes down again. Come on. What does that sound like? The first and second coming of our Lord Yeshua Messiah, right? Like, he came down, people were engaged in debauchery. He interceded, he died on the cross on their behalf, was willing to separate himself from God. Because that's what Moses says. Like, if you don't go with us, because God's like, they're your people, Moses, you take them. And Moses is like, no, these are the people you gave me. All right. And then he begins to intercede on behalf of Israel, like, no, Lord. And he says, if I've actually found favor in your sight, if I found grace, that's that same word that would translate as grace for us today. If I found grace in your sight, then you go with us. And then God says, well, Moses, I'll go. You have favor in my sight. You do, so I'll go with you. And Moses says, no, Lord, if you don't go with us, then leave me too. And God relent, And again, I've taught this part before, and I don't think it's that God is changed by Moses, crying out. I don't think God's heart was shifted by Moses. I think Moses' heart was shifted by God. Right? I think God, much like Abraham crying out for Sodom and Gomorrah, it wasn't that Abraham shifted God's perspective. It was that God shifted Abraham's perspective. And I think the same thing happened with Moses. Is that Moses came to that place like Paul, where he said, for the sake of my kinsmen, I would consider myself accursed. God help me, right? Help me to have that desire for the lost. That I'm willing even to consider myself lost for their sake. So when we can come to that place, and I think it comes back to that grinding of the incense, and when we come to that place, I think God will respond to it. Because then our nature will be like his. He'll have shifted our hearts. Not that his needs to be shifted, but ours do. Well, let me read a few of these quotes, and then I'm going to pray. These are some quotes from this book. The Sabbath is a bride, and its celebration is like a wedding. So when we approach the Sabbath, like she's a bride, a thing to be loved, to be cared for, to be intimate with, to be engaged in, right? And the celebration is like a wedding. And we get to, man, when you live your life from Sabbath, that's from rest to rest, it'll change everything for you, I promise you. I promise you, if you live your life from rest to rest, like most people are living their lives from Monday to Monday, from work day to work day. They're not living their life. I mean, I think of that song. Everybody's working for the weekend. It's work for the Shabbat. The seventh day is like a palace in time with a kingdom for all. It is not a date, but an atmosphere. So the belief is, the rabbinic belief is that God is present on the earth to the soul of man in a special way on Shabbat. I believe it's true. I think it's true. I think he's here in a special way. I feel him, like, even as I say that, I feel like his presence, increased presence in this room right now has increased, like, witness to that truth. It's on this day. I know a few of you, I can look around and see it in your eyes that you feel it. You see it, you sense it. He's opened up himself in a special way to the soul of man on the Sabbath. It's an atmosphere. It's not a date. The Sabbath is the presence of God in the world Here it is, open to the soul of man. 6 days a week, we wrestle with the world. On the Sabbath, we especially care for the seed of eternity planted in our soul. That is so good. The world has our hands, but our soul belongs to someone else. It is not in space, but in time that we find God's likeness. Think about this. Jesus said, that when we're one, like him and the Father are one, that the world will know that he loves them and that he sent him and he loves them. And he talks about, he defines eternity, right? Like in that moment. He says in John 3:16, whoever shall believe in me will not perish but have everlasting life. And then in John 17, he defines everlasting life. He says everlasting life is this, is to know him, the one true God, and him whom he sent. So it's in relation to this. Like, it is not in space but in time that we find the likeness of God, right? That knowing God is like eternity is to know him. That is his likeness. Is that we will spend, and I could get into this whole deep thing about what is there time in eternity? Eternity itself is time. It is speaking of time, an everlasting time, a never-ending time, but the concept of eternity in itself is time. You tell me where the Bible says there will be no time in eternity. We will spend forever, which is another measure of time, in the presence of God. The Sabbath is an opportunity in time to enter into that place. Unless one learns how to relish the taste of Shabbat, one will be unable to enjoy the taste of eternity in the world to come. It's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? So I say all that to say this. What I've been reiterating and stating for several of our Torah studies now. Because a while back I talked about if we don't grasp the main concept of an issue, we'll never understand the details. But if we grasp the main concept, then the details will fall into place and make sense. So the main concept of your complete existence is that God created this earth and even did it for 6 days. Created the earth, created the animals, created you, everything on it and everything in it. And then on the seventh day, he stepped back and enjoyed the completion of what he created and the desire and anticipation and excitement of relationship. You're created for relationship with God and with each other. You know, the most psychopathic people, a psychopath is antisocial. Okay? I mean, at like the root, simple definition if you want. Somebody who is psychopathic is antisocial. We're social beings. You know a way that they can still punish a psychopath is by putting them in solitary confinement. So even a psychopathic person whose very root and issue is antisocial can still be punished by being removed completely from any relationship. So if that doesn't show you that the root of man's existence is relationship. The whole reason he made it, the whole reason you exist, the whole reason that you breathe is to be in relationship with God. What more do you need?